The Christmas gift that blew up a marriage. My sister-in-law's DNA test backfired in the most shocking. My sister-in-law gave my son a DNA test kit for Christmas to prove he wasn't my husband's, but when her own son took one too, we found out her kids weren't her husband's. I met my husband Mark in our late 20s, and we quickly fell in love. After 2 years of dating, we got married. And since then, we've been living a happy, peaceful life. Our bond seemed unbreakable, built on trust and shared dreams. Together, we welcomed our beautiful son, Owen, into the world. And he's been our pride and joy. Now 5 years old, Owen fills our days with laughter, love, and endless energy. We felt like the perfect little family, and I thought nothing could come between us. That was until Brenda, my sister-in-law, decided to throw a wrench into everything. Brenda and I had never truly gotten along. From the moment Mark introduced me to her, there was an underlying tension between us. I had tried to be friendly, but it was clear that Brenda had other plans. At her wedding, she accused me of trying to overshadow her because I wore a cream-colored dress. Now mind you, this wasn't a decision I made. Brenda had specifically chosen cream for all her bridesmaids to wear. Yet on her big day, it somehow became about me stealing the spotlight. She threw a tantrum, turning what should have been her day of joy into an awkward mess for everyone. From that point on, it was a constant game of snide comments, backhanded compliments, and petty actions. If I wore a new dress, Brenda would say, "That's nice, but I liked it better when I saw it in the store last year." If Owen hit a milestone, she would find a way to downplay it, comparing him to her own son, Kevin. It was exhausting, but Mark and I always took the high road. We didn't want to let family drama ruin our lives, and besides, we wanted Owen and Kevin to grow up close like brothers. However, things took a dark turn this past Christmas, when Brenda decided to stir the pot in a way that no one expected. For Christmas, she gave Owen one of those DNA testing kits that everyone seems to be using these days. Initially, I didn't think much of it. Owen has always had an interest in science, and he loves learning about family history. But something about Brenda's smug smile when she handed him the kit didn't sit right with me. I could feel there was more to this gift than met the eye. Later that evening, Mark pulled me aside, his face troubled. He said that Brenda had made some strange, almost cryptic comments to him, remarks about finally getting some answers, and how the truth always comes out. I felt a chill run down my spine. It didn't take long to put two and two together. Owen has green eyes, while both Mark and I have brown eyes. Of course, anyone with even a basic understanding of genetics knows that recessive traits like green eyes can skip generations. But Brenda had been making subtle, passive-aggressive comments for years, hinting that maybe Mark wasn't really Owen's father. This gift was Brenda's way of planting seeds of doubt in our marriage, a calculated move designed to make Mark question Owen's parentage. I was furious. How dare she try to turn something as innocent as a child's curiosity into a tool for her petty games? But Mark and I refused to let her win. We knew the truth. Our love and trust in each other were strong, and we weren't about to let Brenda's poisonous actions shake that foundation. We agreed to let Owen take the test if he wanted to, confident that the results would only confirm what we already knew. Owen is our son, and no test would ever change that. Owen, completely unaware of the tension brewing beneath the surface, was excited about the science behind the DNA test. He loved the idea of learning about his ancestors and where his family came from, so we helped him with the process and he sent off the kit. Meanwhile, Brenda's son, Kevin, had been watching all of this unfold with great interest. Being a curious 14-year-old, Kevin decided he wanted to take a DNA test as well. Brenda's husband, Daniel, thought it would be a fun family activity, so they went ahead and ordered a kit for him too. What started as harmless curiosity soon spiraled into a family disaster. A few weeks later, Owen's results came back, and as expected, everything was as it should be. Mark was his father, no question about it. But then the shock of a lifetime came when Kevin's results arrived. It turned out that Daniel wasn't Kevin's biological father. The truth came crashing down hard. Brenda had an affair more than a decade ago, and Kevin wasn't Daniel's child. The revelation hit the family like a wrecking ball. Daniel was devastated. He had raised Kevin as his own, never suspecting that Brenda had been unfaithful. To make matters worse, Daniel demanded a paternity test for their younger daughter, who was only 7. The results confirmed his worst fears. He wasn't her father either. Brenda's entire life, which she had worked so hard to craft into the perfect image, was unraveling before her eyes. And it wasn't a quiet, private unraveling. The whole family knew, and the fallout was ugly. Within days, Daniel had filed for divorce and moved out of their home. Brenda's world crumbled, and the once smug woman who had tried to destroy my family now found herself standing in the wreckage of her own. The irony of the situation was hard to ignore. Brenda's attempt to tear apart my marriage had only led to the exposure of the lies in her own. Kevin was hit the hardest. He went from being a carefree, happy teenager to a confused and heartbroken young man. The man he had called Dad, for his entire life wasn't his father, and now his family was falling apart. Owen too was affected. He and Kevin had always been close, and seeing his cousin go through such turmoil left him sad and anxious. He started asking questions about why Kevin's dad wasn't around anymore, and it broke my heart to see him so worried about his cousin. As the days passed, Brenda's life continued to unravel. Daniel pushed for full custody of their kids, determined to minimize Brenda's influence in their lives. Brenda, who had always been the one holding the family together with her controlling ways, now looked like a shadow of her former self. At family gatherings, she was a nervous wreck, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. The woman who had once tried to make my life miserable now seemed utterly defeated. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Brenda reached out to me. She called me, her voice shaky and tearful, asking for help. She wanted me to talk to Daniel, to convince him to ease up on the custody arrangements. She was desperate to salvage whatever was left of her relationship with her children, and was asking me, of all people, for advice. At first, I was stunned. After everything she had done, trying to undermine my marriage, causing chaos at every opportunity, she had the audacity to ask for my help? I ignored her calls at first, unwilling to even entertain the idea of helping her. But as the days went on, I found myself thinking about Kevin. He was the real victim in all of this. None of this was his fault, and yet he was the one suffering the most. Owen too was struggling to understand why his cousin's life had been turned upside down. I started to feel conflicted. Was it right to hold Brenda's actions against her children? Should I put my own anger aside and help for the sake of the kids? Mark, of course, told me to stay out of it. He was adamant that Brenda had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I could help bring some peace to the children involved. It wasn't their fault that their mother had made terrible choices. So, I found myself standing at a crossroads, unsure of what the right thing to do was. Should I help Brenda? Or should I let her deal with the consequences of her own actions? And now here I am, torn between doing what feels right for the children and keeping my distance from the woman who had caused so much pain. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Update 1. Hi everybody. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I didn't expect such an overwhelming response, and your support has meant a lot to me during this difficult time. It's been incredibly tough trying to navigate the emotional roller coaster I'm on right now. And knowing there are people out there who understand and care has really helped. I wanted to give an update on what's been happening since my last post, and I hope it sheds some light on the complex situation we're dealing with. Brenda is still constantly calling me, and to be honest, it's becoming exhausting. I thought at some point she might back off or calm down, but she hasn't. She's relentless. There was one particularly bad day where she called me 3 times in a row, leaving long, tearful voicemails. I could hear the desperation in her voice, but after everything, it was hard to muster much sympathy. At one point, my husband, Mark, got so frustrated that he couldn't take it anymore. He called her himself. Mark rarely loses his cool, so when he called her, I knew it was serious. I could hear the anger in his voice from across the room. He blew up, telling her he was done with her disrespecting me and trying to manipulate our family. He made it clear that this wasn't just about the DNA test. It was about years of snide comments, manipulation, and her complete disregard for boundaries. Brenda didn't take it well. She broke down crying on the phone, telling Mark that I had poisoned his mind against her, that I was the one turning him away from his family. Hearing her sob like that left me feeling conflicted. Part of me felt a sliver of sympathy, but mostly I was just tired. After that conversation, things got worse. Brenda's tone shifted again. She started texting me repeatedly, swinging between asking for help and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. One moment she was pleading for my support, saying how much she needed me to talk to Daniel and help smooth things over. The next, she was calling me manipulative, claiming I was jealous of her and her family, that I wanted to destroy her marriage. It was as if she couldn't decide whether I was her enemy or her savior. Honestly, it's been exhausting dealing with her emotional outbursts. I feel like I'm stuck on a roller coaster I didn't sign up for. Through all of this, my biggest concern has been the kids. They're innocent in all of this, yet they're the ones suffering the most. I can't stop thinking about Kevin and Owen. The revelation about Kevin's real father must have been devastating for him, and it's clear that he's struggling to process it. It's hard for me to watch him go through this without being able to help. Owen, on the other hand, doesn't fully understand what's going on, but he knows something is wrong. A few days ago, we had a family gathering, and Owen wanted to play with Kevin just like old times. They used to be so close and inseparable, really. But when Kevin came over, I could see the change in him immediately. He was distant, quiet, and hardly engaged with Owen. My heart broke watching the two boys, who had once been like brothers, now drifting apart. Owen kept asking why Kevin wasn't laughing or playing like he used to, and I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. Instead, I made up excuses, telling him that Kevin was just tired or had a lot on his mind. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Meanwhile, Brenda keeps sending me these long, dramatic texts. Just yesterday, she sent me a message saying how she felt betrayed by our family. I honestly wanted to scream. How could she feel betrayed? It was her choices that led to this mess in the first place. But still, she seems completely unable to take responsibility for her actions. It's always someone else's fault. Mine, Mark's, Daniel's, never hers. Mark and I have had countless late-night conversations about how to handle this. We both want to do what's best for the kids, but we're not sure what that is anymore. Mark believes we should step in and try to help Kevin, especially since he and Owen are so close. But he's also worried about the consequences of getting too involved with Brenda's mess. We've been trying to walk a fine line between being supportive of the kids and protecting our own peace, but it's been harder than we imagined. To complicate things further, Daniel has started reaching out to Mark. He's been trying to make sense of everything and wanted to talk about the situation. Mark reluctantly agreed to meet him for coffee. When he came back, he looked more conflicted than ever. Daniel, understandably, is devastated. He told Mark that he feels like his entire life has been a lie, and now he's struggling to figure out how to co-parent with Brenda after everything that's happened. Talking to Daniel only made Mark more torn. Daniel is a good guy, and he's just trying to do the best he can for his kids, despite the nightmare he's found himself in. After hearing Daniel's side of things, Mark is even more conflicted about how to move forward. He wants to help, but we both know that getting too involved could drag us further into Brenda's drama. It's hard to know what the right thing to do is. Every time I see Kevin, I feel an overwhelming urge to help him. He's just a kid caught in the middle of this disaster, and he doesn't deserve any of it. Owen keeps asking why Kevin seems so sad all the time, and it breaks my heart that I can't give him a real answer. The more I think about it, the more I feel torn between wanting to step in and the fear of being pulled into Brenda's chaotic world. At the end of the day, all I want is to protect the kids. Kevin and Owen deserve better than this, and it's painful to watch them suffer because of the mistakes their parents made. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm hoping we can find a way to resolve this without causing more harm. I'll keep you all posted on what happens next, and again, thank you for your continued support. Update 2. Hi guys, a lot has happened in the past few days, so buckle up. It's been a lot for all of us, and I'm honestly not sure how much longer this will go on, but here's where we're at. First of all, Brenda decided she wanted to go through with a formal medical paternity test. She wasn't satisfied with the results from the at-home DNA kit, claiming it wasn't a reliable source for making such a big decision. To be fair, the at-home tests do have a margin of error, and I guess she was clinging to whatever hope she had left. But guess what? The results didn't change. The medical paternity test confirmed what the original one did. Daniel is not the father of either Kevin or their daughter, and Brenda just dug a bigger hole for herself. I wasn't surprised by the outcome, but this left no room for doubt. Daniel especially seemed like he was trying to prepare for the worst, but when those medical test results came in, I could see that it still hurt him deeply. He looked crushed, like the last bit of hope he was clinging to had been ripped away. He had mentioned to Mark before that he didn't expect some sort of miracle, but there was always that small part of him that hoped maybe the test had been wrong. Seeing the confirmation in black and white felt like a final nail in the coffin. After hearing the news, Daniel became even more withdrawn. I could see it coming, but I didn't expect what happened next. Apparently, after getting the results, Daniel did some digging and tracked down the guy he believed Brenda had the affair with. From what Daniel told Mark, this guy was a coworker of Brenda's from over a decade ago. Daniel had his suspicions about their relationship for a long time, but Brenda had always brushed it off as work stuff. Now it all made sense to Daniel. He had recalled moments where Brenda and this man were unusually close, attending work events together and texting late at night. She always had excuses, convincing Daniel it was innocent. But now it seemed like all of those suspicions were coming to a head. So Daniel decided to confront the guy. He tracked him down to his house and went over there without telling anyone. From what I gathered later, Daniel wasn't in a great state of mind. He was hurt, angry, and desperate for answers. Things escalated quickly. The guy denied everything at first, but Daniel wasn't having it. It quickly turned into a screaming match, and it didn't take long before things became physical. Neighbors heard the commotion and called the cops. By the time the police arrived, both Daniel and the guy were roughed up. Daniel ended up getting arrested for assault, and now he's facing charges. It's a mess. Mark had to go down to the police station to help Daniel out. He bailed him out, but Daniel's facing some serious legal issues now. He's trying to claim the fight was provoked, but it's going to be tough to prove in court. The whole thing just keeps spiraling out of control, and I can't help but feel like all of this stems from Brenda's decision to hide the truth for so many years. Daniel is unraveling, and it's heartbreaking to watch someone who was always so composed fall apart like this. Meanwhile, Brenda's been scrambling to do damage control, but it's far too late. Daniel has now filed for full custody of the kids, using the affair, the paternity tests, and the fight as evidence that Brenda is an unfit mother. Brenda is panicking. She's trying to convince everyone that Daniel is the problem, calling him a psychomaniac, and using the fight as proof that he's unstable and dangerous. She's terrified that Daniel is going to take the kids away from her, and she's lashing out at anyone who doesn't agree with her. The tension between Brenda and Daniel is getting worse by the day. Daniel is furious with her for years of lies, and Brenda is desperate to maintain some semblance of control over her life, which is crumbling around her. I can see the toll it's taking on both of them. But more importantly, I'm worried about how this is affecting Kevin and their daughter. Daniel has been talking about moving out of state with the kids, wanting to put distance between them and Brenda. He believes that a fresh start is what the kids need, far away from all the chaos. But I'm not so sure. I understand his desire to protect them, but uprooting them from everything they've known could do more harm than good. And legally, it's going to be a tough battle. Brenda, as always, is in full meltdown mode. She's been calling me non-stop, alternating between begging for my help and accusing me of turning Mark against her. It's emotionally exhausting to deal with her swings. One minute, she's pleading for support, claiming she's been wronged. The next, she's ranting about how Mark and I are part of some grand conspiracy against her. I wish I could say that I didn't feel any sympathy for her, but part of me does. She's clearly spiraling. But at the same time, I can't ignore the fact that she's brought this all on herself. It's hard to watch someone self-destruct, but it's even harder when they refuse to take any responsibility for their actions. The last time I saw Brenda, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she kept repeating how everything was falling apart, how Daniel was trying to take her kids away. She's in complete denial that her choices are what led to this mess. She still sees herself as the victim in all of this, and that's what makes it so difficult to communicate with her. She's trying to shift all the blame onto Daniel, But anyone who's been paying attention can see that the situation is far more complex than that. At this point, I don't think we have any other choice but to get involved. We're already knee-deep in this mess, whether we like it or not. Mark thinks we should support Daniel and help him get through the legal issues he's facing, especially since Daniel seems to be the more stable parent in all of this. But I'm worried about the impact this is having on the kids. They're caught in the middle of a battle they didn't ask for, and I'm terrified that they're going to be the ones who suffer the most in the long run. Kevin especially seems to be struggling. He's always been a sensitive kid, and I've noticed a change in him since all of this started. He's quieter, more withdrawn, and it's clear that he's confused about what's going on. I can't imagine what it must feel like to find out that the man you've called Dad your whole life isn't actually your biological father. Owen has asked me a few times why Kevin doesn't want to play as much anymore, and it breaks my heart every time. I don't know how to explain it to him in a way that he'll understand. The situation is spiraling out of control, and I honestly don't know how it's going to end. Every time I think things can't get worse, something new happens that drags us all further into the chaos. We're just trying to take things one day at a time and pray for the best. But it's hard to stay hopeful when the future looks so uncertain. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold, but right now, we're just holding on and hoping for some kind of resolution that doesn't completely destroy the lives of these kids. Update 3. Hi everyone. It's time for the final update. A lot has happened since the last time I posted, and I think things are finally starting to settle, though it's been a roller coaster. We're not completely out of the woods yet, but it seems like the worst is behind us. I've been reflecting on everything, and I wanted to share how things have unfolded. First, let's talk about Daniel and the guy Brenda had an affair with. You all know how that confrontation led to Daniel getting arrested after things turned physical. What I didn't share before is that the situation escalated even further. Initially, we thought Daniel might be facing serious charges for the assault, but in a surprising turn of events, the guy decided not to press charges. From what Daniel told us, it sounds like this man wanted to distance himself from the whole mess. He probably realized that his involvement could make things even worse for him, both personally and professionally. While this guy did admit to the affair when the police got involved, he has since cut ties with both Daniel and Brenda. In a way, that chapter of this story has closed, and honestly, I think that's for the best. Daniel doesn't need to keep fighting with someone who clearly never cared about the consequences of his actions. Now, for the part about the kids, this has been the most emotionally draining part for everyone. As you know, Daniel had initially filed for full custody of Kevin and his little sister, which understandably made Brenda panic. But after some tough conversations with his lawyer and some deep reflection, Daniel had a breakthrough. He realized that no matter what the paternity tests say, Kevin and his sister are still his kids. He's been their father since day one, raising them, loving them, and guiding them. That bond isn't something that can be broken by a DNA test. Daniel told Mark and me that he's no longer fighting for custody out of anger or revenge. Instead, he's doing it because he wants to protect the kids from the chaos Brenda has caused. He's determined to shield them from the fallout of her actions, and he's been absolutely incredible throughout all of this. It's so clear how much he loves those children, and that's been his main focus in everything. He's made it a point to remind them that no matter what happens between him and Brenda, they will always be his children. He loves them unconditionally, and he's not going anywhere. The way Daniel handled the conversation with the kids was remarkable. He sat them down and explained the situation in a way that was age-appropriate, not giving them more information than they could handle, but enough so that they understood why things were changing. He reassured them that they didn't do anything wrong, and that none of this was their fault. Kevin especially has been having a tough time processing everything. I think hearing from Daniel that he's still his dad, no matter what, helped ease some of the confusion and pain. I can see that Kevin is still struggling, but he's not as lost as he was before. Brenda, on the other hand, has been a complete wreck. She's still in full panic mode, trying desperately to salvage her relationship with the kids, but she's not going about it the right way. Instead of focusing on their emotional needs, she's been wrapped up in her own problems, trying to manage her public image and fix the mess she created. Meanwhile, Daniel's been the one attending their school events, taking them to doctor's appointments, and making sure they're supported. It's heartbreaking to watch. But Brenda seems more concerned with how things look from the outside than with what's going on inside her family. The custody battle is still ongoing, but Daniel has adjusted his approach. He's now pushing for joint custody instead of full custody, acknowledging that the kids still need their mother in their lives. Despite everything, Daniel is trying to be the bigger person here, recognizing that as hurtful as Brenda's actions have been, the kids shouldn't lose their relationship with her completely. That said, Daniel is still pushing for primary custody because he's been the more stable parent through all of this. He wants to make sure the kids have a sense of security and normalcy, which they've been missing for a long time. From what we've heard, the court seems to be leaning in Daniel's favor. He's demonstrated that he's the one providing stability for the kids, and his devotion to them is clear. Brenda, unfortunately, isn't helping her own case. She's still making things about her, trying to paint herself as the victim and using Daniel's past outburst as a way to claim he's unfit. But it's obvious to everyone involved that Daniel's outburst came from a place of hurt, and he's been doing everything possible to move forward in a healthy way. As for Brenda and Daniel's marriage, that's over. The divorce is in motion, and there's no going back. Daniel's finally at peace with that. He's told Mark and me that he's no longer angry at Brenda. He's just sad for what could have been, sad for how their relationship ended, and sad for the impact it's had on the kids. But he's also focused on moving forward. Daniel's priority now is his children, and he's putting everything into being the best father he can be. Mark and I are doing okay through all of this. It's been tough watching everything unfold, but we've tried to stay supportive without getting too wrapped up in the drama. Owen and Kevin are still as close as ever, and we've been making sure the boys have time together to help Kevin cope. I think it's been good for both of them to have that connection, especially when everything else feels so unstable. One thing I've learned through all of this is how resilient kids can be when they're surrounded by love. Despite the chaos, Daniel's love for his kids has been the anchor that's kept them from completely losing their way. We've all been trying to help, but at the end of the day, it's Daniel's strength and commitment that's going to get them through this. I also want to take a moment to thank all of you for your incredible support. I never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn because of a DNA test, but here we are. Your advice, kind words, and encouragement have helped me more than I can say. Navigating this situation has been overwhelming at times, but knowing that there are people out there who care and understand has made all the difference. I'm hoping this is the last major update I'll need to give. Things are still in motion, but I'm optimistic that the worst is behind us. The kids are still surrounded by love, and in the end, that's what matters most. Thank you all again for sticking with me through this journey. Here's hoping the next chapter is one of healing and peace.